Welcome back to another episode of Positively Uncensored, your favorite reality TV and interview podcast. It's your host, Leah. And before we go any further, I need you to like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you are a repeat listener, please leave me a quick review. Today, we are going to be diving into the finale of Welcome to Pitiful, Welcome to Pittsville, Welcome to Plathville, whichever you like to call it, and all of the shenanigans that went along with it. Now, the episode starts picking up with the family's interrogation of Veronica. And there's no other thing to call it. It's not an intervention because an intervention is usually done with love and to get some sort of resolution to move together as a family. This was an interrogation with the sole intention of getting Veronica out of the family. This could have potentially been an intervention for Micah, but that would involve Veronica not being present. Now, what's interesting to me is Veronica, as outspoken as she is with the family and the things that she says about them, and they know she says about them, she sat here and didn't get up even once during this time. I don't know if she got up and production edited that out or if she truly sat there the entire time. But with the Veronica we saw all season, that surprised me. That surprised me that she sat there. Now, in the beginning of this episode of the finale, Kim interrupts Veronica during her one-on-one because after everyone has attacked her, because they claim that she's attacked everybody else, so she deserves this, the family leaves the room and Veronica is sitting there crying. At the end of the conversation, Micah did tell her, I think that we need to leave. And not like, I think we need to leave and remove ourselves from this situation. I think we need to leave. We need to go back to Tallahassee or wherever they're going. And we're done. We're done. You and I are done. And Isaac and Ethan were so quick to invite themselves or volunteer to drive Micah down there to support him and help him pack things up. What's kind of sad, although I struggle to have a ton of empathy towards Veronica because she's a bad person, is that Veronica does not have this support. At least we're not hearing of it. Presumably, she's going back by herself. Production ends up driving her back because after thinking about it, Micah decides that a 7-hour drive probably isn't a good idea. I thought more so because of the fact that they would argue the entire time. But no, the family thinks it's a bad idea because they know that Veronica is manipulative and they don't want to leave Micah to his own decisions and alone with Veronica on the chance that she might be able to trick him into staying or forgiving her. So let's get back to Kim interrupting Veronica's one-on-one after all of this has gone down. Veronica's talking to the camera and crying because Micah has broken up with her. She was just basically humiliated in front of the family, and everything was blamed on her. And Veronica has a lot of blame for a lot of different things. But this physical altercation, this is definitely a deflection. This is a deflection by the Plath family because rather than talking about the dynamic between the brothers or the precedent for violence that they've set as parents or as a family, it's easier to just blame Veronica. I also found it interesting that despite this being a pretty large incident because Micah had to go to the hospital, that Barry wasn't present for this conversation. Not that the conversation would have gone any differently, but he at least presents himself as somebody who would intervene despite knowing that that's not true. If this is your first time listening and you haven't listened to my interview with Olivia from Welcome to Plathville, we talked a lot about Barry and this sort of facade that he puts on as the goofy dad, or sort of stepping into not being reactional at all because of the temper that he used to have, or even locking Olivia in a room to try to cast out spirits that he thought that she had. Now, fast forward. Barry finally gets to give his 2 cents on this opinion, not because he's there, but in what seems to be like a one-on-one interview. And he says that they have found out that Veronica is in the virtual world, to quote him, and has accused the family of incest, has accused Ethan and Micah of leaving her on the side of the road, and none of the family members, to quote Ethan, have responded to this because they think that it's ridiculous. Now, we fast forward because text pops up on the screen and basically says that Veronica was taken home. Veronica was put up at a hotel by production and then escorted home safely on a flight the next morning. Meanwhile, we saw that Micah went and collected his things with his brothers, presumably that day, as they peeled out of the driveway in somebody's truck. Now we're fast forwarding a little bit, and Ethan and Kim are sitting and hanging. Okay. Season 2 or season 3, who would have thought that this day would be here? In the back of my mind, I always thought that Ethan wasn't strong enough to leave his upbringing, and because it would be a lot easier for him to go back. And with as a manipulative mother as he has, and as I'm not sure what to use for his father, so we'll just talk about the mom. I can see that there's probably a lot of training beforehand where any anger eventually just dissolves and you end up just going back to Kim. So I'm not that shocked, but who would have thought that this moment would come with all of the anger that Ethan at one time rightfully had towards especially his mother, but both of his parents. Today's episode of Positively Uncensored is brought to you by Audible. Audible gives you access to thousands of audiobooks, podcasts, and originals all in one place. I love it because as much as I make time to binge reality TV, I always wish I had more time for my ever-growing TBR list. But life and life's responsibilities always seem to get in the way of sinking into a good book. I'm sure that some of you, if not most of you, can relate. With Audible, I can finally catch up on the books that have been on my TBR list while I'm driving to work, cooking, or even in the shower. If you've been meaning to read more but can't find the time, listening with Audible makes it easy. You can try it out for free by heading to the details in the description. And when you do, you're also supporting the show. Now, let's get back to the episode. Now, Kim is the cool mom, and now that everybody knows that she was drinking, despite the fact that she allegedly got a DUI, she is out vibing. She brings Ethan a pack of cigars and she acts like she's never smoked one before, or like the only time she has, like she hacked up a lung. And I think that this like faux never tried something that Kim does is just all an act. The same way that I didn't believe her when she said that her and Ken have never slept together and she sleeps in a different spot and she got her houseboat because even though he was willing for her to come live on his property, she wants a sense of independence and they want to keep things apart. Give me a fucking break. You are out there in the world, okay? So they're sitting there, and Ethan apologizes to Kim for going along with Olivia and not standing up for the family more and not seeing the reality of things. He adds that he spent the last few years educating himself to really unpack why he believes the things that he believes. And I find this astounding as someone who personally has talked with Olivia, that he's almost like weaponizing the language that Olivia has used because she has actually educated herself. And what Ethan has done is brainwashed himself. He has listened to content within a vacuum of all of the same opinions that all have some sort of hateful or divisive message behind it. And that's not educating yourself. If you're educating yourself by way of podcasts or books written by like white nationalists or rich man to poor man, whatever it is, you're not educating yourself. I don't buy that for 1 second. Now, Lydia interrupts Kim and Ethan's hangout session by FaceTiming them from Paris. And Ethan's tone during this conversation is so disgusting and just adds on to the general ick from the family and the need to discuss Lydia's deflowering and even pushing that to happen sooner and making sure that she's satisfied in the bedroom. If you guys are worried about incest allegations, no offense, but this certainly isn't making matters any better. I know for my circumstance, I can say that my parents don't want to hear about my sex life. I wouldn't even have sex under my parents' roof. My siblings don't want to hear about it. Neither would they get on the phone and encourage it to happen. You know, I just think that the whole thing is odd. But she interrupts them, and the first question that Ethan has is, how did the deed go down? to which they can't hear him, presumably, or they ignore him. And he brings it back up later on when he says, make sure that you fill those croissants with cream. And Zach's like, don't worry, I will. Hargy har har. Meanwhile, earlier in the conversation, even Kim and Ethan had a weird moment where he said, all you have to do is bite the tip of the cigar. And she's like, just the tip? Like, ew. You guys are joking about like oral sex. Like, I don't know. It's just odd. It's one thing to be comfortable. You guys have come a long way as a family, but it's giving strange more than it's giving normal, okay? And for everybody who has sex jokes with their parents, that's completely fine. It probably doesn't land the same way that it lands from the Plaths. I don't know what to say. Now, Kim and Barry meet up at a wine bar, and after 3 years of being in the process of trying to get divorced, they finally got a mediator involved who settles things over the course of a day. They have all of their assets tagged, who gets what. Newsflash, Kim probably wouldn't come to a settlement unless she was getting a lot of things. That's immediately what I'm thinking. My second thought is it's interesting that they decided to meet at a wine bar because again, the family from season 1 to season 7 and the image that they try to create of themselves while having one foot out the door, and we see them partaking of the secular world, if you will, to use the language that's like from faith. I'm curious why Kim wanted to meet up there. It's because she's an alcoholic, though. I've always thought that. In my opinion, she's an alcoholic. What I want to know is Barry drinking? Did he just go there to appease his wife, his ex-wife, because that's where she wanted to go? Did he go there kind of knowing that this makes Kim look even worse? I don't know. One thing I will say is if the rumors are true, which I believe because I heard them from Olivia, that Kim has had been cheating on Barry, it's not just Ken. Okay. If that's true, the only bone I'm going to throw Barry is I don't know whether to say that I think that he has good like moral standing, but it's just surprising that he hasn't thrown out there that Kim has cheated on him. Like in all of the resentment with the divorce and with everything going on, he hasn't necessarily like aired Kim out to dry. He doesn't really talk about her drinking. He didn't talk about her infidelity and all of those things you would think. I don't know. I would just think that he would mention. I would think he would mention. So Barry is basically getting the White House, which we saw them in earlier seasons. And he says Kim is going wherever Kim is going. Her plan that she envisions is to live in some sort of trailer on a large farm lot and then have Isaac, Micah, and Ethan come over and do free manual labor and build themselves a place to live. That's what she envisions. Now, towards the end of the episode, we get to what viewers were waiting for this whole episode, potentially even this whole season. Ethan and Olivia meet up face to face. Now, Ethan shows up to this meetup 2 hours late and smug over the fact that he just had her sitting there and waiting. Now, is his pay docked because he didn't show up at the requested time of filming and they had to go over in hours? I hope so, but he shows up smug 2 hours late with the reason being that he was chopping trees and he had to finish up when he was able to finish up. We know that Ethan was probably sitting there watching the clock and just letting time pass so that Olivia had to sit there and he could say one last F you to her, but she still showed up. Now, Olivia has posted to her story prior to me recording this episode. So we are going to add that into last night's episode because now we have further context. Olivia did a Q&A on her story where she's going to answer all of the audience's questions in lieu of her getting out of her contract. Now, she's still under NDA, but she's out of her contract. And what people wanted to know is why did she meet up with Ethan in her final Plathville scene and what was she expecting? Olivia's response to this is interesting. She says, a producer on the show who has a friendship with Ethan let me know that per their conversation with him, he had expressed a willingness to give me an apology and take accountability. That didn't sound like the Ethan I was married to, but I was not privy to how they spoke of me all season, so I ignored my gut and decided that a public apology would be really nice and agreed to a meeting. My caveat was that I refused to meet him alone or in a private place, so it had to be in public and with all of the crew around. My last interactions with Ethan involved menacing, erratic, and dangerous behavior, and I told myself then that I would never spend time alone with him again. On the day of the meeting, I was super confused as to why he was 2 hours late, but kept ignoring my gut and figured that even if he did apologize, he is still part of the Plath family, and consideration has never been one of their values. When he walked in the gate, I could immediately tell that he was angry. And so could I. Immediately it was written all over his face. And to say what she's not saying, I think he was drunk as well, angry and drunk. She adds, I felt stupid for believing better and thinking that he would apologize. I don't think I was done dirty by a producer. I think that person genuinely thought he would apologize to me based on their conversations. But I learned yet another lesson. Listen to my gut. And when I know who someone is, I don't need to keep giving them chances to hurt me. I have no plans to ever talk to him again. Now that I've seen some of this season air, I can see how much he hates me, has no respect for me, and plans to continue publicly disparaging me. And that's the reality. To sit there and ask Olivia to stop talking negatively about the family, when, as stated in earlier episodes, you quite literally and your family use her as a benchmark as what you don't want future people who join the family to be like, is astonishing. Your family continues to bring her up in a disparaging way and try to make her the problem. It's not all 12 of you, it's the one of her. That's crazy. So he shows up finally, upset, and he has two things to say. Number one, his attorney is going to refile things, and all of the original paperwork, that's gone. But his attorney is going to take care of things now, and he'll have that done within 2 weeks. When Olivia presented the fact that she didn't answer his attorney the first time because she was out of the country, he got upset and immediately shut down that conversation and said that he's not going to argue with her over the divorce. The tone of how he said it, if you know, you know. If you've ever been in a situation to where you have to watch somebody's facial expressions for fear of them lashing out, Ethan is just an incredibly unstable, emotionally volatile, and angry person. That's the reality. And if you find yourself relating to Ethan and you hate listening to this episode, you have some anger inside of you as well. And that's why you relate to him. Whether you feel like you've been passed over, overlooked for something, whether you feel like the position that you've been put in is undeserving and nobody else is in a more undeserving position than yourself, there's some piece of yourself that identifies with Ethan for a reason. Whether you look at people and you know that you should have the ability and discernment to know that they're a bad person, especially if you look at them from the lens of faith. We are instructed to be able to identify false prophets, people who are up at the pulpit and are horrible preachers, and fake Christians. As poorly as I articulated that, all three of those things are true, and you know it. Okay. The second thing that he tells Olivia is to stop slandering his family's name in public. Can you stop slandering my family's name in public? To which Olivia says, no. For your family continues to talk about me, and this was a decade of my life and the experiences from my life. And so I'm going to talk about them. And she says in her confessional, if you want people to talk about you kindly, then I guess that you should treat people with more kindness. Ethan is so brainwashed at this point. He's not even able to look at everything that Olivia went through and admit how bad it was. He, at this point, just says, it might have been unpleasant, but it wasn't everything. that she claimed it to be. We'll see, because allegedly you're not with Tegan, and we'll see what she says too. I'm sure it'll be along the same lines. Now, Kim and Barry, we flash back to their meetup, and she's still sitting there chatting away, getting drunker by the second, and blaming Olivia for virtually everything that's ever happened in their family. Now, Barry is happy to listen because at least she's not blaming him for things, but this relationship couldn't be more over. The episode ends with Kim. The conversation started at the wine bar with Kim asking Barry to get her a glass and if he's feeling kind to get her a bottle. The episode ends with Kim asking, "Did you get me a bottle?" And he says, "Yes, I did. One's in the back for you." And one was, in fact, not in the back. They went looking around for Kim's bottle. It's nowhere to be found. It's probably in your back seat, Kim. You already have one. Let's not act like you don't. But the way he walked out of there, so smug. I'm like, all of the Plath men are different versions of them, of each other. However, did he kind of eat with that? You tell me. You tell me. I overall think that the Plaths are a shitty family. I think Olivia has really exposed and blown the lid off of. The information's there. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. If people don't want to take off the rose-colored glasses, that's one thing. If you're going to ask me if I'm still going to continue to watch the future seasons and see how disastrous the family is, I probably will. And I'm part of the problem. But if you're also asking me if I think that technically there are a lot of Plath family members who shouldn't be on this show, I would say absolutely. Ethan is a dangerous person. He's a dangerous person. Not only is he dangerous to any marginalized person that he's around, he is just a generally dangerous person towards women and other people. I think he's very controlling. I think it's crazy that Lydia and Zach have no recollection of any drama happening, but that's pretty on par with how the Plaths like to keep things. Under the rug, out of sight, but still there and causing actual damage to their family and the dynamic of their family. Season 7 was a shit show. Over the course of 7 seasons, we have seen this family go through a lot. Hey, I have maybe a little bit of hope for Amber. She didn't participate in the group lashing against Victoria, but I think really all of them, this is going to be a disaster. Anyways, leave your comments, leave your thoughts, what you predict for future seasons. Should this show still be airing? Is there still a show? Put all of those in the comments. Reach out to me with all of your thoughts, and thank you for listening.